Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, or whenever you happen to be listening to this, welcome to the Film Realist Podcast, the film and TV podcast from a complete nobody that's hopefully for somebody. I wanted to keep doing the episodes. I think I'm on episode 48. Got to be getting close to a year. Yeah, something like that. Anyways, if you're checked out any of the links posted for this episode, you know that there is a guest, so there's no surprise, but joining the podcast again, friend of the show, editorial brand and PR director of Screenrant and a bunch of other, whatever his job is. Rob Keys is back.
I'm back. Thank you for staying on top of me. I was almost about to pass out, and then I'm like, oh yes, I'm excited to actually talk to someone about this. And so I made myself a late night iced coffee, which I will regret in about an hour, I'm sure.
The one I'm drinking now because I'm trying to save money by drinking them at home.
That's what I'm
like
doing.
That $2, it adds up really quickly, especially
Totally
during a school year. But my wife, I think it was around Christmas time, got me Tim's with a hazelnut twist in it, like in the bag. It's good. So
it's iced with hazelnut?
No, it's just like regular like ground coffee, but there's hazelnut in it. And so I've used that it took me 4 months. This is Coffee Talk with Kyle and Rob, where I'm now just black coffee. I've gotten all the way down to black coffee. So iced, it's just more ice. And then otherwise it's just hot and black. So
I think that's my inevitable future. Like, it's funny. We are derailing right off the bat, as we always do.
That's all right.
My first job was Tim Hortons. I worked there for 3 or 4 years in the summers and whatever. Never had coffee. Could not do it. But, later in university, I got into it and I had to drink it like my mom at the time. It was like triple, which now is like toxic sludge going back 15, 20 years, not to date myself. But then, now I'm a little more normal. I do 1 or 2 cream generally, or milk, whatever's available. I'm not picky. I'm so not picky. I do instant coffee at home. I just boil water. My wife has tea. I just have instant coffee. The Nestle stuff, I get it cheap when I buy it bulk when it's cheap. But to the iced coffee point, I do that at home now too. I buy that Stoke coffee. It's like 2 for 12 or 2 for 14, and mix it with almond milk or vanilla sweet almond milk, and it's just amazing. A little bit of ice in there, and now I'm addicted. So
and iced coffee, especially during the heat we had recently.
Oh,
I started as a double person, and that only came out of the fact that I was working, I think I was like 14 or 15, working as a camp counselor. And you've got like the senior counselors. They're like, Kyle, we're going for a coffee run. How do you take your coffee? And my brain's like, how do people drink coffee? Double. And so I was on double for probably 10 years. And then
that's the most common, dude. When I worked there, that was the order, doubles, 100%.
And so the first step was switching out cream for milk and then going down to just milk.
Yeah.
But then it was like I went from none of the sugar to 3 milk, then to 2 milk, then to 1, and then just drinking it straight black for about a month. And now I love it. It took like a month straight. So it's easy to now.
I do cheat in the mornings, like when I'm not like hot and like it's been crazy a couple of weeks in terms of heat and stuff. I do cheat and have like a little like half a spoon of maple syrup in there instead of sugar.
Yeah, something like that. That's nice.
Game changer.
All right, you can tweet at me how you take your coffee. Not that I'm going to order it for you, but
let us know in the comments how you drink your coffee and where it's
exactly. I'm going to put a poll in Spotify because you can do that now. I'm going to put a poll into how people take, the question for this week will be, how do you take your coffee? Well, the segue into this would be, because he's a former military man, I would assume Nick Fury takes his coffee black.
Yeah.
That right? Yeah. Typically he drinks.
I imagine pre and post blip, he's heavy on the caffeine. So yes.
So, yes, we are going to be talking Secret Invasion. The 6-episode miniseries is now over. For anyone listening, we're going to be getting into full spoilers for this. At time of release, it's been almost a week. So if you haven't had a chance to watch the miniseries yet, there's everything from the start to the end of the series is going to be covered in this. Potentially spoilers for the comic book series that none of this was based off of whatsoever, but as always with Conversations with Rob, there may be wild speculation about what's coming up in the future or teases about something that may or may not be happening. So you have been warned. There will be a fun little audio cue, and then we will get into spoilers for Secret Invasion. Okay, Rob, we did, I believe the last time on the show, you ranked all of Phase 4, TV shows included. So if you have not seen that, listener, the photo for the whole thing is posted on the Instagram for the podcast and the Twitter. But maybe I'll repost it for this as to so that you can get Rob's general feelings as to what Phase 4 was like. And
I
if
need
your
to see that
Twitter
again.
if your let me pull it up. If your Twitter is anything to be inspected as to how you felt about this show,
Oh
why
yeah,
don't you lead
spoilers.
off with how you
Yeah.
felt about Secret
Look,
Invasion?
oh man, I have so much to say. So I will say this though, going into this, the very first marketing for this, I mean, once I got past the idea of like, oh, Marvel's using a title and just playing fast and loose with titles from the comics, which they always do. I mean, we saw it with Age of Ultron, of course, and Civil War. They're not exactly following the comics, obviously. They're just taking inspiration from it and the base idea. But when the first trailer came out and teases for this, I was kind of excited, which was unusual given my feelings on the rest of, well, pretty much all of Disney plus Marvel content, but also just the trend of the MCU since Endgame. Um, because this was taking some of the top tier talent from the franchise and then adding in Kingsley Benadir. They're adding in Emilia Clarke. They're adding in Olivia Colman. I'm like, whoa, this is one of like on paper, if they're doing a show which looks from the teaser to be like a talkie, where it's just people in rooms and espionage, it's a thriller, it's dialogue and character driven. I'm like, they have assembled such an incredible cast for this. And despite my feelings on Captain Marvel, like I do think Ben Mendelsohn and Sam L are like one of the best pairings, have some of the coolest on and off screen chemistry. I think they're just so talented as people, but there's just such cool characters to bounce off each other. And I'm like, if they do any version of even part of a buddy cop movie between these two in the thick of the background of a scroll weird espionage story, I'm like, this is going to be cool. And the first two episodes, I'm like, okay, they're kind of putting all the pieces in place. We'll see where this goes. I will wait and see if they address some of the big questions we have from the existence of Skrulls for 3 decades. What happened to Carol Danvers? Why isn't she helping? And all these other things that's happened between in the background of all the other MCU stories. To see how they weave this in and what they may or may not set up in a Disney Plus show in this era. But then after that, it was kind of just goofy and downhill and trotting its feet. And for the life of me, I cannot understand how $212 US million was spent on this project. I also don't understand how 15 years in the script, and after 4 months of rewrites and reshoots, by the way, ended up in this place. It's so the bigger concern here is like I don't know who is saying yes to this stuff and what they're trying to build towards. And by the way, not to derail the conversation off the bat, but this is happening in the midst of all this confusion about where the multiverse saga is even going. So I think this was a massive misfire, and the audience and critical reception reflects that.
I
Yeah,
think that's
there
a
you go.
completely fair criticism. What ultimately was so preface before going into the series, which was that we had the announcement that we were getting a bazillion projects in the
Yeah.
span of the 5 years, which was notable. Obviously, this comic book run is significant for how drastically it affected the comic book continuity at the time. Captain America being a Skrull and whatnot, and not. I've not read the whole Secret Invasion. I've read pieces here and there because similar to other runs, Clone Saga being an example, it kind of gets all over the place and you lose track of why it's supposed to be good.
We should also say that the Secret Invasion comics were not well received. People thought it was
No.
over the top and goofy and dumb and not well written. But the big thing, what you're alluding to a bit, is that it was a universal event. It involved everybody, all the Avengers, and they did have some twists, and they did try to kill off some main characters too. So, like, you gotta give them credit for taking a swing. Of course, with Disney Plus, this is not an Avengers level event. It's like 2 or 3 characters with all this stuff happening inexplicably, given what should have been happening in the rest of the universe. So, it's weird why they chose this now, you know?
Well, and I think what seems to be the prevailing thought that I have through phase 4 into phase 5, and on a different podcast in another time pre-pandemic, I was given criticism for being more critical, not even more critical, but the expectations for how well executed Marvel storylines could be. I'm trying this thing more recently with the podcast where I wear attire that has to do with it because it looks better on socials. So for Barbie, I wore a pink headband, and a bright neon
I
shirt.
saw
For
that.
Oppenheimer, I wore a tie and a fedora. So for this, I'm wearing my red hat because it's the Blue Jays and my Winter Soldier t-shirt, which goes
Ah,
back to the level of execution in that script. And yes, you could be critical of Civil War with not having as pristine execution because it essentially was an Avengers film, but the level of depth that Marcus and McFeely were able to weave that through at that point 8 years of continuity and without having to retcon anything substantially or undermine something that had happened before is quite a feat. You're writing a movie in a box in a box. And Secret Invasion being connected to Captain Marvel, which already was a substantial retcon when that came out in March of 2019, establishing no, we've had a superhuman. I don't want to call it meta because that's a DC thing. A superhuman on Earth. We've had contact with aliens. Nick Fury lost his eye to I wanted to call it a Craggle.
Flurkin,
Crazy Flurkin.
I
Yeah,
think.
I think you're right. Flurkin cat named Goose. And so, okay, fine. But establishing the relationship with the Skrulls in a 30-year time frame could be really interesting. And while I hate to put on, well, this isn't the story that I wanted it to tell, therefore it's bad. What I was most disappointed by was the surface level story we got when, given the gaps of time we have no context for, the level of storytelling that they could tell because of the open time frame where this is they're referencing time pre 2008, and then you also have the blip, which was 5 years of nothing we've seen so far. You can really fill in this quote unquote secret invasion. And as opposed to using that time effectively, we get one flashback being like, they're here. And then we don't get to establish the significant impact they've had on human history. We get to learn that, yeah, they've been helping Nick Fury, helping him raise the ranks. And I'll completely agree with you. I think Ben Mendelsohn and Sam Jackson are fantastic together. Their scenes in the diners or their back and forth, that's what happens when you get great actors, passable dialogue. They raise what they're able to do with that. And you feel that 30-year friendship that's been back and forth. And you do get to establish a little bit of Talos may have been Nick Fury here and there. We know he was for sure in Spider-Man No Way Home, but not No Way Home, Far From Home.
Yeah.
I still hate the fact that they used home in all of those titles, but we don't really get any answers. We get shock value with certain characters being Skrulls, but we don't get to understand how long they are. The director has to, whenever a director for anything has to come out and explain something, the thing you made did not do a good job. And we don't know, again, we're in full spoilers. We don't know how long I was just John Watson from Sherlock. Elliot Ross? No. What the heck is his name? Martin Freeman. Everett Ross.
Oh, I thought you were trying to get to Rhodey. I was like, wait a second,
No,
where's this
no,
going?
but he was a Skrull. Rhodey was a Skrull,
Yeah.
and if the director's comments on when these things happen, that also does not fit with the canon that we already have established. So, full blown spoilers. We're going to deep dive into this. It's Secret Invasion. If Rhodey has been a Skrull since Civil War, then the Skrull's reaction to Tony dying makes absolutely no sense. And I'm sorry, these things where significant moments are happening to these characters shouldn't get undone by bad writing. And like for me, that's the
Yeah.
worst aspect of this whole thing is for a long time, regardless of overall quality. And there were elements of the show that I did quite enjoy, but a lot of this just feels like a continuation of there's too many things under the house. And while Kevin Feige he's not a screenwriter, he's a producer, and he's clearly been a very good producer, and he's been a great idea guy. There's been too many things that seem to not get whatever final touches he may be applying, or the rewrites. I'm sorry, you're just not getting writers who are up to the par that the MCU has established for itself. And it continues to be a problem where, regardless of the comic book having mixed reception, each of these projects on television should enhance the experience we have going to the theater and none of them seem to matter. We know that, again, the directors come out and said, I had to do two things because Armor Wars is maybe coming out in 2074, and I needed Nick to go back into space because the Marvels. And I say this knowing that there are going to be people reacting to things I've established I've been a fan of, and I'm fully aware and ready for it. This is turning into how poorly the DCEU handled its continuity.
Oh, I mean, you're
Think
not wrong right now.
content is just being made, and as someone who enjoyed the decade run we got to have, it just feels like we've got characters, we got to put stuff out. And you're absolutely, Robin, I think this is a great point we can get into together is we've got this multiverse happening, but, and I'm saying this because I've struggled with this my entire life. I have horrendously bad ADHD, and the lack of focus is bountiful with these projects where I'm trying to absorb as much content as possible from this universe that I thoroughly enjoyed, and it does not seem like anyone knows what's happening anymore.
Yeah.
Where we've got
It's
IPs, make the thing, make the thing, make the thing. The
yeah.
DCU has done that since 2017. EU,
The problem is,
absolutely.
yeah. I mean, it's funny you bring up the DCEU of it all because James Gunn spoke about this specifically. I think it was on Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You podcast where he said, "Look,
Mhm.
the problem he sees." He was referring to like Hollywood in general, but we know he's talking about these like these genre films and probably taking shots at Marvel. It's like they're greenlighting things without having a reason to. It's just like the content mill must mill content. They're not coming to the table saying, I have this amazing story. This has to be told. It's this great piece. It's emotional. It's a great character journey. That is not the starting point. The starting point is what you said. It's like, oh, yeah, we have a thing here. We have a slot in Q4. We can hit these demographics and this audience. We have this much budget allocated. We got this many licenses secured to sell this many toys. And yeah, as long as we get this character here and that's it. It's like, whoa. Why? So I need someone to tell me why are we doing a scroll story now? What was so important about killing off Talos, spoilers, and setting up a character I don't even know from the comics as like the most powerful being in the MCU? Why do we need Gia or Gaia as like the most powerful being in existence, as far as we know, at the end of this show? The show that's not being viewed by not even a small fraction of the people that are seeing the movies in theaters.
It's so she can
Why
rule
are we doing
Westeros.
that instead of giving us one of 3 Spider-Man films, or you know what I mean? Like give us any other character we've been waiting for. Like this doesn't make sense to me. And you could flip to the other things. It's like, why are we doing an Agatha spinoff of WandaVision? Like what? Like why? Like I understand it's going to be probably a follow up to WandaVision, but it's like we are so past that. We had the Doctor Strange stuff after that. We want to know where the Vision went to. And is there an Avengers team somewhere? Is there still Shield somewhere? Like what's happening? Like I don't understand this. And the other part of it is, okay, if we're treating most of these, if not all of them, as building blocks, what are you building towards? Because none of these shows are building towards a thing, but they're also as standalone stories or pieces of content or products or services, they are failing. I think some of the better ones, like some people love Moon Knight, some people love whatever, WandaVision, Loki. To me, it's still the best they've done on Marvel is 7 out of 10. And that's being generous to me. Compared to what I would say is a 9 out of 10 when you take the top 3, 5, or 7 shows on any of the other streamers. And I keep bringing this point back up. Disney Plus does not deliver prestige content. For me, and you and I in Canada, we get FX, so we're getting all that bonus stuff. And
I
I do
say
think Star
Andor is
Wars,
the only one.
yeah, Star Wars delivered
Yeah.
Andor, which is 10 out of 10, one of the greatest shows in the last 10 years, I think. By the way, not to derail, a lot of people get really angsty, and there's all these rumors about Kathleen Kennedy being fired, this and that. Oh, she's always fired. She ruined everything. I'm like, she's the only reason Andor exists. The only reason.
Hmm.
And she fought for it so hard, she greenlighted 2 seasons in the biggest budget before they even started. She's also the only reason The Acolyte exists. And I'm pretty confident The Acolyte is going to be the only great show of the next 5 or 10 they put out. So I want people to remember that when they talk about Kathleen Kennedy and what she has to deal with in terms of internal politicking. But there's no one in terms on the Marvel side of it. I don't know who went to Kevin or if Kevin went to someone else and said, "Hey, I want 6 shows out this year. They're all going to be 6 out of 10, and 5 of the 6 have nothing to do with the Avengers. And I have no idea when these characters are coming back. I don't know where Moon Knight's coming back. She-Hulk threw in Hulk and Daredevil and a bunch of characters I expect to be back. and Hulk's son. What? Question mark. So you know what I mean? It's just randomness. And there's a great tweet, I'm sure you saw it going around, of like, here are 4 characters you'll never see again. And it was like Hercules, it was Gaia, it was Hulk's son, and I forget who the 4th one was. It's just like,
What
why are we introducing these
Zeus was
characters?
there. Yeah, I did see
No, it
that.
wasn't Zeus in that picture. It was someone else that they introduced at the end of it. I forget. But and also like you watched Thor 4 and they introduced Thor's
Oh, it was Charlize
the
Theron.
daughter. Oh, maybe it might have been
Okay.
Doctor Strange. Yeah, it's like, why are we doing like these are not exciting because their intros are happening in movies no one cares about. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
like oh, I was gonna say an example, but it's too mean. Anyways, it's like watching a movie that bombs at the box office and gets like 40% Rotten Tomatoes, and there's a big post-credit scene at the end of it. And it's like, why are you doing this? You have not earned the right to do that. So, you know what I mean? I think everyone should be fired on that project, sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, just let's circle back to Secret Invasion. Yeah, I don't. Again, like, what are they setting up? Is this a direct tie-in to just the Marvels and Armor Wars? Is that the point of the story? I guess.
It has to be because that's all right. What's most frustrating to me is when star of my best friend's wedding showed up, Dermot Mulrooney, as the new president, because we don't know when he became president. What happened to the dude from Shawshank, who was president in Iron Man 2?
Oh God, I don't even remember,
I
to be
don't
honest.
remember,
Yeah.
but that it's it. The only answer is we have stuff, because do I feel like anything really happened with a Avenger? No, I don't. Rhodey, I guess technically maybe is an Avenger, but he's now
Yeah,
back
I
to
think
having
so.
no legs. Yes,
Maybe.
we have a super scroll, so maybe she shows up in Fantastic Four in 7 years. But
What could you imagine? They introduced the Fantastic Four after all this time, and they introduced this random character from the bad Disney Plus show instead of introducing. Like, could you
like
imagine? That's probably what they will do. But oh my gosh, like, what a bad idea. Ugh.
we could have gotten Killian Murphy to be Doctor Doom, but we need Amelia Clark to show back up as Gaia.
Yeah. Ugh.
It's it. I don't. The Disney Plus of it all fundamentally frustrates me, and we've talked about this. And not that Ben's listening to this, but Ben, watched season 3 of Daredevil because you're missing out. And that
You did? Oh,
no,
you
I don't.
telling them to? You mean?
I'm telling him to, because
Oh, he
Ben
probably
hasn't
hasn't. Yeah.
watched it yet. He won't. Um, Although I don't know if we've talked about this, I came up with a canon explanation as to why Matt, or like Daredevil's now in red and yellow for the MCU appearances, because if Bullseye was running around in the full red suit post
Oh.
him having to use the jujitsu outfit from The Man Without Fear, he would need some sort of like public rebrand. They're like, that's the yellow and red Daredevil. See, he's not so bad, even though it's like minimal at best. And his fight scenes are all CGI because we didn't want to hire stuntmen. That really bothered me, by the way, but we'll get into that maybe.
Ugh.
And so that's where I found more disappointing, as you talked about at the very beginning of this, how intriguing the trailers looked. And the reason I'm wearing my Winter Soldier t-shirt is a well thought out espionage stories can be done well on TV. You've been tweeting about it. I haven't finished it yet. Jack Ryan just did 4 seasons of it. Like, these things are
Mhm.
possible, and I guarantee you it did not cost $212 million for 6 episodes. It might have over 10. I
No.
don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Jack
And
Ryan
that
season
show
4, and
has
it's clean 6 episodes. You know what I mean? 6 episodes with figuring out who's bad, who's good. The other season's not as strong, but season 4 is awesome. But also, just they watch The Americans. No
Mhm.
CG at all. You know what I mean? Incredible show. Very slow burn, all character driven. Just
Well,
do
and
that.
Jack Ryan has had multiple showrunners. So it just shows you like taking the time to come up with the right story. A lot of this feels first draft. I said this when we reviewed Ant-Man Quantumania, which is a fun enough movie, but as being somebody who owns all 6 seasons of Rick and Morty physically, it felt like the first draft of a Rick and Morty script that Dan Harmon wouldn't have
Yeah,
let get made. And is
true.
the I mean, Chapek is out the door, and now Uncle Bob Iger's back telling everybody to work. I'm sorry, Bob. Look at your paycheck, because you don't deserve that given what's happening with your streaming service right now. And
Yeah.
You've talked about this on podcast X, go all the way back to Screenrant Underground about how you consume content. And as somebody who loves the MCU for what it's been capable of doing, the ultimate testament for me to show my level of investment is Secret Invasion came out and I forgot about it till about the Friday to watch the first episode. I then watched the second one when it launched, forgot for 3 weeks, watched 3, 4, and 5 that week, and then finally watched 6 when it came out. These things are not event television because the quality that you're
No.
putting out, it's making people think superhero fatigue is a thing, is going to happen when you are putting out sixes at best and sevens at, at being generous.
I
Across the Spider
yeah.
Verse is a great example of doing something well brings in money.
That's it.
4 years
I think
between
quality is king.
projects. Yeah.
Uh, I think episodically between seasons and as a larger franchise, I don't know how they rectify this. I do not have an answer. I mean, the big answer is they reset it in Secret Wars or Deadpool 3 or something, of course. But it's like the problem is they burned. They burned because like my whole career is directly tied to the beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? It was from me watching that 2006 panel at San Diego Comic Con with Kevin Feige talking about, oh, we're going to do Ant-Man and Iron Man, and it's a little small thing, you know what I mean? And then I got into it in 2008 with the beginning of Iron Man. Like, that was the first thing, so it was back then. But even forget phase one, going to phase two, and most of phase three, when they did something, it was exciting because you're building towards something greater. You knew something bigger was coming. But not just something bigger, something that was going to be cool. You were excited to see these characters come back or this character meet this character. Now it's just like, what? And it's like, on top of that, for everything you're saying about the quality and sixes and sevens out of tens, it's just none of my personal friends watch this. And to your own point of like, it's not event TV. You don't need to rush to see it. In our internal work, screaming at Slacks or our weekly meetings, we make jokes about, oh, has a Secret Invasion even started? Or like week 5, you know what I mean? And just making that joke because like no one's
Mm-hmm.
talking about it. No one cares. You know what I mean? The interest is there's no hype. It's just the people that have to, or it's built into their online persona, like or you and I were so invested in it for other reasons as well. And good or bad, we're going to follow it through out of curiosity and to know and be able to talk about the next thing. None of my friends care about that. My parents don't care. My brother doesn't care. My wife doesn't care. Like nobody cares. This is not exciting. So would I recommend Secret Invasion to anyone? No. I have 50 other shows I'd recommend that came out in the last 6 months. Every other show on every other streaming service that aired in the last 6 months is better than Secret Invasion. I just watched Twisted Metal, which I thought was going to be terrible. And that is more fun than Secret Invasion. And I wasn't even looking for fun for Secret Invasion. But in terms of like delivering an experience that's worth talking about, recommending, like that's where Marvel is right now. So how do you come out of that? But also, these are supposed to be building blocks, supposed to be, towards something bigger. And they spent $212 million and had this giant cast come together and they embarrassed themselves again. And so this fall, I don't know how much you want to talk about what's coming up next. We have like Loki and Echo back to back. Echo, another example of
They're
why are
dumping the
we
whole
doing this now?
season.
There's a reason. Yeah, because they know who's going to watch that week to week. It's going to be nobody. They have to drop that week because it'd be embarrassing. The numbers would be so bad. And plus, there's a lot of weird behind the scenes reports about like production of that was halted. And there was talk about like they need to retool the story. And so I don't know. I mean, it's too bad because like the talent behind that also kind of cool. And I did like that character in Hawkeye. It's just if I had to pick and choose 3 projects for the back half of the year, why is Echo of the library of 20,000 Marvel characters, is that character getting a spin-off solo show? The answer is, oh, I'm sure Jessica Jones will appear, Daredevil will appear. It's setting up teases for other things. But it's like, if it's not good and nobody watches, you're doing it wrong. Stop doing teases. Come to the table with a story or a big important chapter that's genuinely quality to build something bigger. Because right now they're just doing,
What's
well,
reactionary, if
nothing right.
anything.
Yeah.
That to me is ultimately, and I like let's avoid the Star Wars Kathleen Kennedy things because there's going to be people reacting to either of those sequel films. But the last thing you want to be doing, and again, following this stuff all the way from the beginning, and it takes even longer with a television series. It's like, oh, this worked, let's do the thing. So if you're not confident in the plan you have, and I just, every time somebody tweets out something about what's going on with this, I just use that GIF. I say GIF from Avengers, but not a great plan. And right now, it's most frustrating to me where I don't know what Kevin's doing, but the job he clearly, for the most part, was doing for 10 years, he's dropped the ball for the last three. We've Shang-Chi, bright spot. I liked Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and there's just outside of that, it's meh. And the fact that this franchise has this reaction with like the stones still being pushed uphill. You can't stop the machine, which is ultimately where when you can take a reset because there are so many cogs that continue need to be turning with the merchandise. We got to put that show out because we're selling a bunch of toys for whatever. Obviously, that's why these things get made at the end of the day. But that the reset is, I mean, strikes are happening and they should be happening because these people deserve livable wages and to have all their health care and whatnot taken care of for these jobs that are continually making money, even though they don't get to earn any of that. But you can't stop. So somebody's not doing their job, and say what you will about all the other universes, like people are still making content on other platforms and they're doing it well with new
Yes.
things. Like you have the basis of the entire Marvel comics behind you. And yes, you took a name from something. This is not the first time they've done it. Age of Ultron had nothing to do with that. I mean, you now own Fox. Days of Future Past took a title and the framework of it, but managed to make a fun movie. Was this just we had a contract with Ben Mendelsohn that was going to expire, and we thought let's do 6 episodes of nothing? And I mentioned this earlier, which was none of the espionage in this remotely feels exciting until the last 4 minutes when oh we know the scrolls are out there and we're just killing people. The end. Like that should
Yeah.
have been the show. Right? There's no espionage in this at all. We get pieces of some scrolls. Nobody's actually being a spy. And if Nick Fury is the super spy, he does a terrible job in this show. He comes down from
Yeah.
space, puts on his eye patch and his purple toque, which don't think we'd seen that from him before, but whatever. And you wasted Olivia Colman. That's a crime. It's
She
like
was she was gold when she was on screen for limited screen time. I'll say
yeah,
that much. So, but
but
yeah, you're right. They
ultimately
could have done more with her.
wasted characters and just name actors is not the MCU's bread and butter.
Yeah. To the larger conversation of where this is going, and you mentioned like pushing the rocks to us to be pushed uphill or whatever. I have so many questions, big and small, but like the way they avoided the space of it all. This is an alien species looking for home. There's zero shots in space. Like we have the beginning and end shots of Fury doing some close encounters, teleportation, whatever, up and down,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. And it's like they still have not explained in this 30-year gap why Carol Danvers never came back to hang out, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
she just completely she had chose never once to talk to her friends or help at all. She made this promise to just actually vanish. I am shocked she didn't show up for one of these episodes. That's weird. But they never explained the space station. Like, where is this tech from Skrulls? How do they have a super advanced stealth space station
The
with all this
Sword
crazy
space
space
station.
travel? Yeah, which like what? The whole MCU has been completely ignoring the cosmic of it all. Captain Marvel was so focused on Earth. Guardians was so self-contained and also built a movie based on a fictional version of Earth. It's like they just will not do cosmic stories. Eternals, all on Earth, weird, right? Still have not addressed what happened in that film. It's I don't understand. Like we're getting further and further into these cosmic tales, while avoiding the cosmic. Just give me a movie exploring the Skrull homeworld. Like what happened for real? Like you know what I mean? Go out. Just give me a Star Trek's Marvel movie would be better than all of this. But what's going to happen? The Marvels is just going to be gimmicks. The cat, the Flurkin's back. Now there's Flurkin kittens. I think if you judge going by the toys or whatever, and I
Mm-hmm.
think the most recent marketing materials may have shown that too. And then again, lots of Earth stuff. There's a space station they have not explained, and Sam L is just up there doing that now, I guess. And does that mean he's ignoring the scrolls, or is this movie going to touch on the scrolls as well? It's
Not a chance.
That's a red flag.
Well, and
And
we get
I'm
to fight a new Ronan the Accuser. Woo.
I don't even know who that is. So it's again, they're choosing characters like who is that? Like I, I don't understand. I do not understand what the pitch meetings are internally. Like if someone said to me, it's like, okay, at the end of Secret Invasion, guy is gonna like flex her arm and it's gonna look like Drax. Remember Drax? And he's got tattoos and everything. And I'd be like, wait, why? Why would you choose Drax's arm over any other DNA? Also, why are the tattoos there? And
Why
it's like,
not
who
just
is
Hulk's
Gaia?
arm?
Gaia joined the comics like 3 or 4 years ago. That's a nobody. Nobody knows who that is. And is the end of if she's being set up to be a British super spy or some version of an Avenger, like are we saying we're replacing the Captain Americas and the Iron Mans and the Captain Marvels with like rando DNA OP character? I don't understand what they're doing with these weird introductions of so many non-comics characters. I mean, even Guardians, which I quite enjoyed, like the end of that, the post-credit scene shows like what the new Guardians lineup would be. And there's that random girl there. And it's like, who is that? Like there's so
She's
many characters in the comics. Like
she's one of the
uh
kids, right? From
she is one of
the
the kids they
yeah.
rescue. She has powers. They don't explain that. You could say she's a version of Moondragon or someone from the comics or Phyla Vel,
Mhm.
but what? Like just tell stories. There's so many decades of comics that you could be pulling from and then building out on that. Instead, it's like a scatter shot of IP across Disney Plus, rushed, and within that, a scatter shot of ideas that are not really connecting. They're not exciting. They're bad choices in many respects, and uh, I feel like you and I are being so down here. I know I am. I'm just so deflated by this because like it's hard to be. This is supposed to be such a big thing, and we're coming up to the time in the MCU where we're finally going to meet the X-Men and the Fantastic Four or some version of these things, and they're coming into the worst possible version of this universe and a version of it that people mainstream could not care less. It is the least interesting time period in the MCU. And the, which, I'm glad you brought up the strikes. I mean, I don't know how Disney's going to market the Marvels without being able to put Brie Larson out there. But to me, like Iman Vellani, she should be
On
on every talk show
Vellani.
in the world. She is the heart of that. She's the
Mhm.
one of the most exciting things the MCU has. She's even writing a Miss Marvel comic book to salvage the stupid things they've been doing with that character in the comics, like killing her off. Imagine that. So I think that movie's gonna bomb, like because like the last couple of Marvel movies, I mean, Guardians did well. I made like 875 or some big number. Good for James
Mhm.
Gunn, that and good for that
Yep.
crew. I'm happy for them. But Ant-Man did not do that. Thor did not do that. And I think the Marvels, like the marketing is not great. It's coming out of this, and none of it seems to make sense. I think it's going to bomb if it comes out. So I wouldn't be surprised if that gets delayed if the strike is still going on.
Well, yeah,
Not that it's going
that's
to help the quality of it, right? But
well, you brought up X-Men and the Fantastic Four, and that was again, if you're just having people sit around, like it feels like if there are people with pitches, they're hollow pitches that don't understand the significance specifically. And if you're not a long-term comic book reader, you wouldn't know this, but the Skrulls have a significant relationship with the Fantastic Four. Like, and again, I by no means am a screenwriter or anything, but I like to come up with ideas. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, but nobody bats 1,000. Where if you introduce this idea of super Skrulls and Nick Fury having DNA from heroes, which on paper, that's a great idea. What if the powers that Gravik uses as a super Skrull were all for the Fantastic Four powers? He's got stretchy arms, he turns invisible, makes force fields, can be rock phrasing. He can turn into someone who is solid
you
as
can
rock.
get rock. That'd be
But
sick power.
yeah, well, there you go. We put an entire pharmaceutical company out of business. But
Yeah.
that one's for the grown-ups. But you know what I mean? Like, tease something that establishes what we don't know about the universe. Because again, they announced a Fantastic Four movie. And again, this is something that's drove me nuts. The way that the MCU's multiverse works still makes no freaking sense. In where Benedict Cumberbatch is four Doctor Stranges, and we get certain characters being different people, which is fine. Like obviously you had a Captain Carter versus Chris Evans. That's a different choice thing, butterfly effect or whatnot. But then you do something like having John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, which excited people who knew nothing about Mr. Fantastic because John Krasinski's amazing. And but that's not Mr. Fantastic. So one of the things that could build hype for this is actually telling us who the freaking people are, because you don't have a cast. You can read whatever rumors may or may not be happening, but Marvel's not announced anybody who it could have been. But I think general audiences are aware enough of what the Fantastic Four can do. So doing something where you're like, wait a minute, those powers aren't something we've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way, in my mind, to make the Fantastic Four, the X-Men is a whole different bottle of yarn, but to make the Fantastic Four fit in is they've existed, we haven't seen them, because they do have a substantial history with going cosmic, traveling through space and whatnot. That's how they get their powers to begin with. But
I think what you're saying would make a lot of sense. It'd be awesome if Phase 4 made sense and was quality paramount above all, right? Like if there was more, imagine what you're saying is true, and like wait a second, oh my god, so the harvest or whatever collection of DNA that the Super Skrull or the MCU version of that has is 4 very iconic, recognizable powers, and the fans would lose it if they watched the show and cared, and the show was awesome. It's not, so for that reason, in retrospect, I'm happy they didn't do that, because it'd be burning a great idea. Like I always say, that's again, they set up things at the end, but the show is so bad they burned it. So they've ruined it, right? And now, flip side, imagine the rest of Phase 4 was quality, like parts of Phase 2 and Phase 3 were. What if another show teased that? Oh my god, the Avengers Tower, that's the Baxter Building, whatever. It's the Fantastic,
the thing
Fantastic
everyone's been asking for.
Yeah, and there's in some other show, maybe in Spider-Man or something. You saw that stupid Fantastic Four vehicle flying around in the background one shot. You're like, wait, is that? You know what I mean? Or in a post-credit scene. And it's
or
like,
just a freaking 4 on the building.
Yeah, building all these things would be cool if all these things they're building is cool. But it's like if you have like 4 broken, decrepit steps on a staircase building towards the 5th step, which is a huge question mark, I don't give a I can't get to that step. I'm falling through the floor. You know what I mean? So they're not building anything that's quality. And the materials they're using to build the bigger thing is like the crap they found on the side of the street. It's not the good stuff. Where's the good stuff? And the good stuff is the best writers and directors and talent in the industry who probably don't want to work under this regime or this system where they don't have control. It's all CG. There's a shot, I think, in Secret Invasion of like, I think it's for this, where Nick Fury is sitting in an office or something, and they green screen the background of the office. I'm like, just put him in a building. Like, what are we doing? Like, it's like that shot in Spider-Man where Tony's character, what's his face, Flash, whatever, is like on the phone walking down the street, and he's like doing it on a green screen. I'm like, you couldn't just like
in No Way Home,
just have him walk down the street. It looks so bad. Like, this is how cheap and full of shortcuts we are. You know what I mean?
Graveyard with Jon Favreau.
Oh,
at the end of No Way Home.
Yeah. I think someone said that the Martin Freeman shot in the final episode was like shot after maybe. And that's why like when he woke up, it's like it doesn't look the same or something. But I didn't catch that myself, but I was watching like low quality screener on like a laptop or something. But
it just said Rob Keys over front of it. And you're like, this may make it better. I don't know.
Yeah. I get that a lot. By the way, Apple does screeners well, by the way.
Do they?
Like, they do proper app in 4K, not watermarked. It's amazing. Like everyone's got to learn from Apple. They're doing it right. And their shows are better than Marvel's. Weird.
That's true. I just got Last of Us on 4K, and I watched the first episode again last night. And it's like, I loved the show to begin with, but just 4K quality, because I don't think Crave for us Canadians streams in 4K at all. I think it maxes out at 1080.
Oh, I think you told me.
And and on PC, it's 720, which is even more frustrating.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm fairly certain. Now, if I'm wrong about that, that's fine. But I mean, having it 4K physical media, it's beautiful. Another premium television show. And again, I was thinking about this while watching this. These freaking strikes, probably not going to get Last of Us season 2 for like 4 years now.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so many things. I mean, everything's in flux, but
did you sorry, I know we're derailing here. Did you watch Silo on Apple by chance?
So I've been over the summer because I'm off. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how much I've said about what my professional life is like, but that doesn't matter. So I'm because there's always too much. I haven't started it yet. I was waiting for it to get done, but then I decided I'm finally watching Peaky Blinders.
I've not seen. I've watched the beginning of that, but
I've been going through that. My goal is to have that done by next week, and then I've got Foundation season 2 and Silo to get through.
I've watched most of season 2. Yeah.
This episode was supposed to have. This episode was supposed to have my DC EU tier list, but Jermaine, you're gonna have to wait for that for next week because Gran Turismo got delayed, so it'll probably fill into that slot.
Oh,
So
that whole Sony slate is wild, huh? They changed everything. So now, if there's 7 movies scheduled for next year, Across the Spider-Verse doesn't have a date. They're waiting on strikes. But if Aquaman gets delayed, or I guess the Marvels too, that could be 9 or 10 superhero epics in theaters next year. So that much
ooh.
crowding will just result in an even worse box office, you know?
June in general was something I enjoyed reviewing and talking about, but madness in terms of how
Oh yeah,
poorly
dude. On
everything
our
did.
end, because they knew the strike was coming. The initial date was July 1st. They added the 12 days. The AMPTP did, knowing they had to get this huge world junket thing going on for Barbenheimer weekend, right? Just to playing the
Mm-hmm.
game. But because of that, we had like 2 or 3 times as many junkets in June. So we were doing like 5, 6, 7 junkets a day, 5, 6, 7 interviews each. Like we were turning down like I had Idris Elba's people begging me to fly to London. And I'm
For
like, I
hijack.
can't for hijack. Just to talk to him. He's like, he really wants to talk to you in person. I'm like, I would love to, but like I don't have the bodies. I literally can't do it. I was in Ireland. I had people doing Haunted Mansion in New Orleans. I had like 3 different things in LA, 2 things in New York. I was like, I have no people for this. So we had to Zoom it, full pandemic era style. But we were turning down everything and we had to do everything remote. We did hundreds of interviews because everyone knew the strike was coming. So all these movies that are coming out right now in theaters or all throughout July, we were doing advanced interviews for in June, which was just madness. But kind of exciting. But on the flip side of that, it was also doubled down by their things are opening up post pandemic, knock on wood. So we were doing things in person. Like I did my first service in years. At the same time, we had people traveling to special events and activations in person, which is it's great to see. So I hope next year, assuming the writers and actors get what they deserve and everyone can go back to work fairly compensated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I would like to see all the studios get back to doing in-person stuff. I'd love to visit sets of these things again. But the reason I bring that up is I was also like, I could say it now because it's been announced, but like I was super ill and I binged all of Silo. Like the day before Silo aired, I watched all 10 episodes. Apple's so good at this. And Foundation season 2, I watched all again. And I was like, this show's amazing. I was telling everyone, you got to watch this show. And nobody knew what I was talking about. And as I finished that, I got an email from someone at Apple saying, hey, like secretly, confidentially, we're already shooting season 2. And I was like, oh, and they wanted to bring me out to London to visit the set. And of course, they're like, oh, it's going to be end of June or whatever it was, end of July, maybe August. And of course, the strike didn't really derail that. But I was so excited because I was like the only person in the world who had seen that show. Anyways, Apple killing it on the screeners and the shows.
Mm-hmm.
And now SAG strike put an end to all that. But that's
I'm
okay.
very curious, kind of wrapping this all up, like how it's going to affect streaming content because they're working under a completely different model than box office if anything gets delayed at all. Because selfishly, one of the shows I'm really looking forward to, I should say spoilers are over for Secret Invasion, is Reacher season 2. Because that was one of my favorite shows
Love Reacher.
of whatever that year was. And they shot it close to my family, which I thought was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to that. I'm behind on a couple stuff. I think moving forward, because there's going to be gaps in release content, I'm going to certainly do a season 3 review of Warrior, which has been the best season yet. So if you're not
Is
watching
it?
Warrior,
Nice.
it's amazing. It's funny. So I got on Black Sails, of course, because of Andrew Dice, and because it also shoots in South Africa. There's a bunch of casts that are also clearly locals they use for that. Strange New Worlds, I'm probably 4 behind on, just because there's
That's
always
cool.
too much
It's a fun season.
stuff.
I just
So,
watched what's this week? I watched the musical episode a couple days, 2 days ago.
oh,
I'm
nice.
curious. I'm curious what everyone thinks about that.
Yeah, and so it's disappointing. Like, as I want to be so excited for this. Saying IP sounds really cold, but for these properties that I'm a fan of, and even just using the titles for stuff, and also over the summer, I've been reading some of the comics that James Gunn has said are going to inspire whatever the
Mm-hmm.
DCU has moving forward. I just finished reading both of Green Lantern Earth Ones, and I thought they were fantastic.
Cool.
Which would be really interesting, but
Wait,
also at
isn't
the
that
same.
more? Is it? Sorry. That comic's more Hal Jordan, is it not?
So it is Hal Jordan based, but I think one of the elements that I would change if it were up to me was to bring in somebody like Jessica Cruz, like have Jessica
Yeah,
Cruz and Jon Stewart, because I think the dichotomy of those two people, somebody being like a trained military personnel and then somebody suffering from agoraphobia, who like can't go outside, and like the complete dichotomy of their personalities would really be interesting to see, because obviously Jessica suffers from mental
that's the
health.
tricky part. If you think of starting a new franchise, do you start Green Lantern with newer characters, or do you
Does it
have to?
matter? Is my like really? Does it matter? You had Ryan
Well, I
Reynolds
don't
as
know.
Hal Jordan.
Here, I mean, that's a different. I mean, yeah, that's. Oh, maybe he still will be. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay,
But here's
imagine
the thing.
shows up
Let's
with
say
a
Marvel.
beard.
Like I'll give you an example. If you look at the MCU timing, it's not far off from the beginning of when Miles Morales debuted from Brian
Hmm.
Michael Bendis in the comics. Would you start the MCU with Miles Morales? I would say no. I think it's crucial to have Peter Parker die or have build up that character for some audience and
Hmm.
have him pass the web shooters or something and be a mentor. I love that idea of the long term storytelling. I think the timing is weird. I'm glad the animated Spider-Verse films are killing it because Miles is finally getting some spotlight attention.
And the
It's
video
perhaps
games.
of course, video games huge, 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 and both featuring has headliners in Spider-Man 2 coming on this year, which is very exciting. By the way, that was a huge thing at Comic Con, big
Just
college
after my
panel for
birthday.
Hell's yeah, treat yourself.
Going to.
And then, but the point I was going to make is like if they reset, start fresh MCU now, and you have like this is your first Avengers team in this continuity, in this timeline of this universe, like the superheroes just began. Would it start with like Miles and Falcon and Captain Marvel? I'm like, I don't know if it would. I still think the Spider-Man hierarchy. I still think in timeline wise, Aunt May came first, and then it was Peter Parker, and then they taught Miles, and you know what I mean? Like, and then Steve
I
Rogers
think it.
got the shield in the 40s and gave it to someone else. It didn't start with Bucky or Sam or you know what I mean? So to me, I don't know as much about Green Lantern comics, but I do wonder if like you have 60 years of things about one version of the Flash or one thing about Green Lantern. I like them being in the story somehow, whether they are a dead character or someone who passes the mantle or they're an older character and the focus is on a new character. It is weird for a DC universe to exist where one of the first Green Lanterns wasn't whoever the first Green Lanterns were. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, what I'm most curious about is clearly based on what James has had to say, and I did listen to that Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum episode. Is and I wouldn't say this is clear. I think it's a fair assumption that we are going to be jumping into a universe that's already on the go, which I appreciate, not starting everything from the beginning. And
Yeah.
being somebody who grew up with the DC animated universe, that never used Hal Jordan. There's one episode of Superman the animated series where they used Kyle Rayner with kind of a
Mhm.
fusion origin. He was still the artist, but he got his ring from Abin Sur. And then for Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, it was Jon Stewart. So I think if we have a universe because of the way that the Lantern Corps works, you could conceivably do anything. Like you could have what everybody's been asking for. I think if you're just a fan, even minusculely of Green Lanterns, which is Lethal Weapon in space, where you have two lanterns.
Yeah,
Because
I did
Earth,
that. I always loved that idea when HBO Max was talking about it because it was like there was two mains, but there's clearly going to be a whole larger team behind them, right? So,
yeah. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I think that's
It's
right. But you're also right. Like, even though Superman's story is like it's not an origin, it's year two or whatever it is. I don't know how long superheroes have existed in this universe beyond that. So maybe you're right. Maybe a Green Lantern has been around and they're very well established on Earth, and they are known quantities. And so the time for Jessica Cruz is now with John or whoever, right? So. Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to say. I mean, if you look at who they're casting as like supporting heroes in Superman Legacy, it is
well, we have
very
one
interesting.
literally right there. There's Guy Gardner, right?
Yeah,
So
you have
like,
Nathan Fillion as Green Lantern. Oh my god, 15 years in the making.
yeah, he's the Green Lantern nobody wanted him to be 15 years later.
Oh, maybe they'll just kill him off then. That'd be hilarious.
It would be really fun. Parallax just shows up and he gets Yellow Lantern right through the
Yeah,
chest.
and then he can come back as TDK or whatever from the Suicide Squad.
I think this is wraps into our Secret Invasion conversation without getting into more
Oh yeah,
spoilers for Secret Invasion, which is just being a hardcore fan of these properties and not having a clear understanding of where we're going is for me the most frustrating. Back on James Gunn's comments from the same interview, in a couple weeks, Blue Beetle comes out, and Blue Beetle will be the first DCU character, but Blue Beetle will not be the first DCU movie. And that screams to we made the movie and we really like Xolo Maridueña as Jaime Reyes, but we're not using the movie's continuity. Like, The Flash has come out on digital. That didn't answer anything. If it just had Barry running into white light, there's your reset point, and then the next thing we see can be the DC universe.
Yeah. I mean, this whole story, but the whole like how they got Bruce Wayne to show up at the end. I don't know how you're going to get spoilers. I guess it's long past now. Nobody cares. But when I saw that movie, that shot wasn't included, right?
Saw it at WonderCon?
Unfinished.
Or CinemaCon?
CinemaCon. Yeah, they showed it to the whole industry and kept that one scene out. If that scene was left open to introduce the Bruce Wayne that James Gunn is going to hire for Brave and the Bold,
Jensen
like, okay,
Ackles.
that is the reset. That universe he ends in, yeah, that'd be cool. The universe that Barry ends in, is like, that is the new status quo. Mm-hmm. But them throwing in Georgie Boy, it's like, oh, okay, it's a gag, but two, it's like, okay, that they just showed that the universe, there's a billion universes, they're all kind of messed up now. So whatever, he can just pick and choose whoever he wants. But yeah, they're ignoring the Blue Beetle story, probably because it looks incredibly generic. But the character and suit and the actor and then hopefully, ideally, the family who is talented, that they all stay and they just tell them a new story, whatever. That's cool. Maybe they do a Booster Gold and tie it in that way. Who knows? But they have Amanda Waller. Like, Amanda Waller's already there. The Peacemaker, they're already in. These are part of the new DCU, and they're already existing before. So I'm not really sure why he's saying that. I think that was just a stretch to get hype for this movie. The same way he said The Flash is the best superhero movie ever made, and it's like, well,
Tom Cruise loves it.
Tom Cruise loves it. Yeah, it's just
Stephen King.
Steven Spielberg said Transformers 2 is Michael Bay's best ever work or whatever. It's like, okay, guys, you guys.
The one that bothered me most of all of those was, I just forgot his name. Oh my god, James Cameron telling me I was gonna love Terminator Genesis.
Oh yeah.
If you love Terminator, you're gonna love Terminator Genesis, where Matt Smith plays Siri.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. So that was Genesis. Also, the first.
There we go. There's the segue. Emilia Clarke also in that.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
She wasn't bad in that. I liked her in that. It was what's his face? It was Jai Courtney who was miscast in that one.
Well, and then they had. Now I want to make sure I say this guy's name right, because they recast. Nope.
Oh.
I can't type.
Great in Oppenheimer.
Yeah. It was the guy, the original Storm Shadow. Lee Byung-hun played the new version of the T-1000, and he was awesome.
Holy crap! I did forget about. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so since I have you here, before I let you go, this is something I tweeted about, and I want to put this out in the universe. I'm going to put it out anywhere, because Simu has talked about we're not getting Shang-Chi 2 for a while.
Right.
Talk about the comics affecting what the movies tell. Clearly, DC is doing that more so, and I'm super happy to see. I know as a comic book reader, it's doing wonders. I've talked to my local comic book shop that anytime they've promoted a comic, it's sold out. And this is one indication, but that's something the movies should be doing, is promoting the actual source material. But Marvel Comics has introduced an actual Asian Iron Fist, who a lot of people want to be in Shang-Chi 2. I think that makes a lot of sense. And he's my boy, Andrew Koji, the lead of Warrior, Assam, or new Storm Shadow. I mean, that universe is dead, probably. Given.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I want him to be new Iron Fist. That's something I want to happen. Because clearly he's got the action and the acting chops. If he can lead an HBO show, that's what I want.
He looks good. I'm sorry, I'm not forgetting if I'm allowed to swear in your podcast. Beep it out. He's a good-looking dude. He can act and he kicks ass, and he's got a special charm to him as well, which you can see. Even in that, even in Snake Eyes to an extent, given the character he's playing, right? But yeah, that's a no-brainer to me. They should absolutely do that. I think there's instant fan following, instant positivity across all fronts, and a character we can rally behind, because if he's involved, guess what? He's actually going to be fighting people. And it's like, yes, do that. One of these
Yeah.
shows has to do that. And it'd be such an upgrade over poor, whatever. Finn Jones. I was going to make some jokes about Finn Jones not working for his role. Yeah, whatever. I don't know what happened. But yeah, I mean, they could redo the Defenders. You know, you bring back everybody else and you got Koji in there. Oh, boy. I'm in. They have
That's
not
what
said anything about Luke Cage, though. That's the only character we're missing. Is Mike
I mean.
Coulter going
Yes,
to come
Mike,
back?
because
Question
he's
mark.
contracted for evil. I feel like if you go down the rabbit hole of getting Ritter, Cox, obviously, I think everybody's aware we're not going to get Finn back, but I
No,
think you.
but John Bernthal's back as Punisher. I confirmed that.
Bernthal- yeah,
Trades confirmed it, anyways.
yeah,
Yeah, I think Coulter's good. He was also good in that. You seen that movie Plane with Gerard Butler?
yep,
Coulter was great in that, and there was talk about doing the boat follow up, and it'd be all about Mike Coulter's character after the
that's
fact. And I'm like,
cool.
oh, he's a good look again. Good looking, charming dude who can fight. Like they got to bring him back. He's pretty good too. Just give him a better role. Also, where Luke Cage ended in season 2 is pretty interesting. So,
Mhm.
not that they would continue that story, but
Multiverse.
yeah. But having those characters team up, now you can do some real heroes for hire, some real Defender stuff. You have a larger new Avengers roster, and some of those characters can appear. But I do like the idea of embracing the modern Iron Fist that way. That's smart.
And it's a better costume. That's also part of the.
Totally.
It's a way
Yeah, and
better costume.
also they didn't even get into the costume that much in other Iron Fist. So
No, the most we saw was on flashbacks of the other guy.
yeah, season 2 had them dress up with parts of it in the flashbacks and stuff like that. But yeah, they didn't never went all out with that. So
Who knows? Well, next week the review will be of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles
all right,
Mutant Mayhem. I'm seeing it early, but the episode will
nice.
come out as regularly scheduled. I don't think I have anything else to say. Oh yeah, the theme song for the podcast was composed by the band You Versus Me. You can find their music on Apple Music and Spotify. The podcast is now on even more platforms. I've added it to iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public. I think Stitcher's gone now, so it's never been there. Of course, I want to say thank you to Mr. Rob Keys for being on the show.
Thank you.
Might be
Thank
back
you
for
having me.
Eternals. Who knows? Or not
Yeah,
the Marvels.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, if that
maybe,
comes out this fall.
maybe we will see a hand bursting through the earth again. I really doubt
True.
it.
You have to be able to see it from the windows up in that sword space.
1,000%. Yeah, I guarantee you, like interns on Sword, like high five the window where the hand is.
I would. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, it's like having to do the Leaning Tower of Pisa photo
That's
in
it.
Italy.
Dude.
It's like
That's some dude. That would be the selfie that Kamala would do when she's in the
yeah.
station. You know what I mean? By the way, not to keep going, but here, like, there's a bunch of all the speculation and rumors are like that's going to be Krakoa or something. That's the island where Magneto sets up shop with the X-Men, and this is where they get adamantium from. It's from the skin of the Celestial or whatever. And it's like, oh,
We had
is this
adamantium
what they're
teased in
doing?
something already, didn't we?
I
don't
can't
know.
remember. Was it slightly teased in Black Panther 2, or am I thinking of something else? Maybe not. I don't know.
I could have sworn there was something in Secret Invasion, but maybe I don't know.
Because there's so much
Again,
talk about the vibranium and metals in that movie. I don't remember. But
they may not even do Adam. Who knows? I don't know. Somebody knows.
no,
Kevin, I
we
hope
will.
you know, because the last thing I want to feel is disinterested in this universe. Can you
Yeah,
think
dude.
of
Watching
a
music.
more
I'm going to
frustrating
retire
thing?
now.
I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. Like Secret Wars feels like, pun intended, his end game,
Mhm.
right? And like closing everything off and cohesively putting, I mean, for all intents and purposes, being a DC fan, it's their Crisis on Infinite Earths to move
Yeah,
away everything that's happening.
it's how they can bring back everybody, and I mean
Mhm.
everybody, right?
Yep.
Like including Downey, and then at the end of it, that's like complete, like assemble all the universes, all these stupid gimmicks, and boom, Fantastic Four, reset it and rebuild the universe, and now you have like you recast everyone. You have young Iron Man, young Cap, whatever, and you have every character you want, the best version of them all. The same way James Gunn's going to pick and choose whatever he has left from the DCEU for the DCU, whatever it's called. That is the way out. But can they get there? And hopefully, again, maybe that's the answer. All this stuff's gonna be so bad, and then we get 2 or 3 bright spots. Shang-Chi 2 comes out in 2027, which is I guess after Secret Wars at this point. But Secret Wars comes out, and if it's great, like Endgame was, and then no one's gonna care about all this crap. They'll just start from the beginning, So,
But
which
that's
is
the
the way
most
to go.
frustrating part. Like, oh, we get an Echo and we get an Agatha show, Where give
Yeah.
me Shang-Chi 2. Like, I don't stop wasting your money on Blade. That movie's not happening. Like, just give me
Oh
Shang-Chi
yeah.
2. You can make it for like $80 million with just an amazing like I'm trying to think of who's not busy. Chad Stahelski and David Leitch are both busy. Hell, get Brett Chan, who's the stunt coordinator for Warrior. He just directed episode 6 and it was amazing. Like, what happened to getting indie directors who you can kind of work with? Like, get back to what made the MCU good.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Get back to what
You,
made
you
it good.
you're
I hope
absolutely
next
right.
week I'll be yelling Cowabunga. That's my hope. Please like
Oh.
and subscribe on your podcast platform. And if you're listening on Spotify, there may be a fun question to answer, but you'll have to check it out there.